Hello, everybody, and welcome to Adapt with Danette FM. I'm Jez FM, the podcast producer, and Danette, how are you going this week?
Yeah, Jez, another great week, and I'm loving these podcasts and the conversations. I'm learning so much.
Great, great. Well, today we've got an amazing one. We've got one with Chris, and we'll get into that shortly. But today we will be talking about purpose with passion, which I think is kind of it doesn't necessarily sound adaptable, but through the conversation, I think you learn how important that is, and especially to Chris's journey as well. But let's throw to you. So, Danette, obviously, just tell us a little bit about your thoughts on purpose with passion or today's conversation with Chris.
Yeah, so we deliberately chose Chris as the person for this particular episode because Chris is the CEO of Whiddon. Whiddon is a not-for-profit aged care provider. And as many people would know, during COVID, there was lots of worries around the aged care sector. There's also been a Royal Commission into aged care. And I want to say that Whiddon is the exemplary aged care provider in terms of they came through the Royal Commission really well, but they're a provider that's constantly looking at how do they improve what they do for their people, both their team members and also their residents. So that's why we chose him, because he'd actually navigated this whole COVID in an amazing way and kept his team and his residents safe and engaged in what they were doing.
Amazing. Well, everybody, I think without further ado, let's throw to the conversation you had with Chris right now. Enjoy.
So, Chris, I might just start by obviously saying thank you for joining me on Adapt with Danette FM. I'd love for you to introduce yourself and give our listeners a little bit of your background.
Sure. So I guess, so let's start with who I am. I'm the CEO of Whiddon Aged Care, and Whiddon is a large not-for-profit aged care provider. We've been around for about 75 years, and we provide a lot of beautiful care outcomes across New South Wales and Queensland. 21 homes, caring for probably close to 2,500 people within our homes and in home care, and around 2.5, pushing 3,000 these days employees as well. So big not-for-profit organisation doing some good things. In terms of my background, I'm an accountant first and foremost. I guess that's where it all started, and had really worked my way ground up from in working in all accounting roles, and then eventually getting into senior leadership roles. I guess fortunate enough to get into some executive roles, and then pushing into that sort of CEO space with the last couple of roles that I've had, and particularly here at Whiddon. So been a good journey over probably, 30 years these days. And I'm pretty happy in the for-purpose, not-for-profit sector, and what we're able to do across a whole spectrum of things. It sort of brings a fair bit of fulfillment, which is nice at this point in the career.
Nice. I started talking without the mic on. So, Chris, obviously during COVID, you would have had lots of opportunity to practice a lot of what we're going to be talking about today, because obviously your whole industry, there was a Royal Commission into aged care and stuff like that. And I love to say that your organisation came out really well from that. And, obviously that's led from the top. So I just wanted to say, congratulations during that time. And all the great that I see you do, the team members do to make people's lives way better. So I just wanted to sort of acknowledge that on the show. Now, you're welcome. I'd love for you to share, what are some of the things that you do personally to assist you to adapt?
In terms of adapting, I guess that from my own perspective, purpose and that focus on purpose is pretty important, and probably it's probably the thing that drives most of what I'm doing these days, to be honest with you. So if you look at it through the lens of adapting, when we were in the midst of COVID, for example, and at our campus in Glenfield, which is in southwest Sydney, and we were surrounded by some of those they call them hotspots, Liverpool, Campbelltown, everyone was in lockdown, and we're here looking after sort of 500 residents. We've got a roster of 350 people coming in every day to work. And we were trying to find new ways to protect our team and at the time, and our residents. And at the time, rapid antigen tests were unknown in Australia, and they were widely used in the UK and the US. And we through one of our partners, happened to come across a supplier that was bringing them into the country, and we were given this opportunity to let's start using them. They weren't TGA approved, so you kind of think the last thing you need to be doing where your workforce is under strain and COVID's banging on the door is to start trialing some new, technology, which is what it is and what it was at the time. But we did, and we were very successful in it. And we started setting up the first screening areas and protocols and procedures around that, and trying the rapid antigen tests on employees and residents, using them in outbreaks. And just by putting that effort in and having a team of willing people who were all very keen to get involved for the same reason, purpose, protecting each other, protecting our residents. I mean, those steps undoubtedly led to a lot of lives saved at our home, because remember back then, people weren't vaccinated. So without a doubt, it saved lives here at Glenfield. Residents were very vulnerable, protected our people. We detected COVID coming in. We were able to stop people, coming in. And from there, that trial actually led to really the full subsidisation of rapid antigen testing across Australia in aged care, because we got funding from the government. They backed it. So those steps to adapt to that environment, even though it was pretty chaotic, and for a lot of people, it was probably the last thing you wanted to do at the time. Without a doubt, saved a lot of lives. And that's not just me. There's a big team of people that were involved from the ground up with those trials. So I think that probably gives you sort of one example where, what's our focus? Our focus is people care and the people providing that care. And that's pretty good. That's motivation to, change your colours and get involved in something new.
That's a great share. And often when there's change, particularly when there's chaos and disruption, people tend to get resistant to that change. So I'd love, you talked about the purpose. Share a little bit more about that purpose and how it engaged, both the residents and also team members.
Well, look, our purpose is about the people we care for and the people providing that care. So people are central to what we do, and creating positive impact with those people. That's really what we're about. So I think that's a pretty positive driver. Obviously, you need a lot of other things to facilitate that. From a strategic perspective, we have business strategies and we have clinical strategies. But at the end of the day, that's what we get up for in the morning. So I think that it's, I often say that, well, we get this feedback actually. We conduct regular surveys with our people, and some of the feedback that comes back from them, which is really reassuring because it validates the work that we're doing, is along the lines of one of the phrases that was coined out of the survey was purpose with passion. So, and they say that as an organisation, we give them this license to focus and pursue our purpose with passion. And I guess in my role and from a senior leadership perspective, when you hear that, you say, great, the message is getting out there, and we're doing some really, we're doing something right, because that's exactly what we want our people to say. And so, we obviously work very hard to achieve that. I guess it's balancing that up. There are challenges because the workforce is still, there's a lot of restraint and constraints on the workforce at the moment. So it's very exciting when you think about the future and you think about the workforce will stabilise at some point, and the funding is starting to improve. And I say to the guys, well, we're achieving these outcomes in this environment. Can you imagine what it's going to be like? So thinking about, what we'll be able to do when we're fueled up and in an even better position. So, so I think you need to be able to give license to your team, to your organisation, and that means almost 3,000 people across the organisation. And whether you're at our home in Burke or up in Newcastle and Belmont or here in Glenfield, that message needs to get out to everyone, and the people also need to understand it's an authentic message. And I think all of us here live and breathe that purpose. The people who stay here and who are in our senior leadership team, they live and breathe it, as do our board. And that it needs to be real. It needs to be authentic. There's no point in me banging on the drum and that message is just rhetoric and there's no value behind it. And all of us go out and visit our homes. We also do. We take shifts and have the occasional shift here and there. And I think, they know what we're about. Our team know us. They know us well. They're comfortable communicating with us. So there's that level of authenticity about the message, and we do live our purpose and our values. And I think that's probably the key to getting that feedback from the team that says, well, we've got purpose with passion. So I think, it is our North Star, and it definitely helps to drive these outcomes.
Nice. And having dealt with Whiddon over the years, absolutely agree. You and your senior leadership team walk that, and as do all the staff members, etc. So well done.
Good to hear. Good to hear.
It is. That's one of the reasons I asked you, Chris, because I was like, who do I know has navigated lots of disruption, in a really authentic, beautiful way that has served, your residents and that, and your team members. So
Nice.
that's why I asked you. So my next question is, how do you deal with failure? I'd love an example of where something didn't go according to plan. What did you learn from it?
I think failure. I don't particularly like failing, to be honest. I don't know that anyone does, but I think you learn to accept that failure is also part of the learning process. There's success that comes out of failure and learning from that. And it's also how you define it. I guess going back to the COVID example, and we weren't alone in this position as an organisation. Two things collided with COVID: the underfunding of aged care, which had been going on for probably about 5 or 6 years, well documented. 2/3 of the sector have been losing money, came out of the Royal Commission. So you kind of had this underfunding of aged care, and then it collided with all the challenges of COVID. So the additional costs, the impact on occupancy, the impact on workforce, even the impact on morale in the team, all those things, it all collided. So financially, we failed over those couple of years. It was quite devastating financially, and that was hard to take. And I think a lot of people who were looking at our financial results over that period, struggled with it. It's been very difficult. We're coming out of that now, but for that period, and just the disclaimer, we may be a not-for-profit organisation, but you need to be commercially viable so you can pursue your purpose and have that impact. So that was quite difficult, and we had to adapt and we had to make changes, and a lot of things. There's a lot of strategic shifts that had to occur to start us on the journey back out of that. But at the same time, and particularly in those first couple of years, the first year when residents weren't vaccinated and we were going through all the vaccination process, we were one of the few organisations that we had no loss of life. There was a period there for around 12 months, I'm stretching my memory now, where there were some devastating cases around the country and homes that we had no loss of life. So while it was difficult to accept the financial failure or the financial challenges, I could see where we were still having successes, and you're weighing human life and the well-being of your workforce, and the peace of mind of the families whose mothers and fathers and aunties and uncles are in our care. you can take the positives out of that away. And I think that's part of learning to accept the some of these failures that occur, is looking at what else is coming out of it. And that was a real positive, and it helped take that bit of pill down as well.
No, it's a great example. And I was going to say, as a finance person, when the money's going down, we were always like, yeah. And look, we also have a home in Burke, and you could do exactly the same thing. Burke is a beautiful little homestead with I think 10 residents now in our home there, and that environment generates the most beautiful outcomes because it's truly person-centered care. It's almost, you've got probably 1 to 4, 1 to 5, 1 employee to 4 or 5 residents, pretty regularly. You see a resident get up in the morning and they give them a kiss, good morning. It's like a family. It's quite lovely. However, that sort of model doesn't make money. It's very hard to make money out of it. And again, we have other ways to subsidise that home, and it's all about context and it's all about the way you look at it. The outcomes we generate, you can't put a price on that. So, think of a time where you needed to change, you adapted, but what would have happened if you hadn't have adapted?
Well, that's a good question. I keep harping back to this. I keep coming back to this COVID case and this because it's just fresh in the memory. If, as I said before, if we hadn't put those, if we hadn't gone with those trials of rapid antigen testing, on one front, we would have had a greater incidence of COVID. We probably would have seen loss of life as well. I'm pretty sure that would have been the case. At the same time, we gained additional opportunities from that process. So where we are today, our relationship with government improved, and some of the initiatives I guess the government saw us as an organisation that was progressive and innovative, and that's great because we get opportunities with government to work on things today because of those. The other thing that happened is it solidified a partnership with the organisation that introduced us to rapid antigen testing, a company called Pantonic Health, that because we said, let's give it a go because we see the value in that. We then took other steps later on with them, working with rapid PCR testing, with the little shoebox units which conduct PCR testing, which in a lot of our regional homes are really a valuable asset. We have access to those and nobody else does. It opened up a door, and that door opened up another door to where we are today, where we're now working on a sort of pharmacogenomic DNA profiling to deliver better outcomes as well. So that's a new project. But if we hadn't have gone and taken that step, there would have been lost opportunities. And I think it opened many doors in that case. I guess other things that we've done in the past, so just to move away from the COVID, because I've kind of bashed that one to death a little bit, but we also pioneered relationship-based care, and that's really a person-centered approach to care. And I think that is really the way that the government want providers to provide care. Now the standards have changed a few years ago, and that was something that was pretty obvious. This is probably going back a decade, to be honest, when the ball started rolling with that. And because of those moves, we are ahead in terms of our model of care. We're ahead in terms of the impact that it's had on culture. We're ahead in terms of our compliance with the standards, and that's reflecting in our compliance outcomes and our star ratings as well. But most importantly, some providers might be satisfied with a bricks and mortar accommodation type approach to care, and not all of our homes are 5-star buildings. They're nice. It's nice accommodation, but we do our very best to provide 5-star relationships within the home. And I think that taking that journey and making those steps and seeing that in advance and adapting to that has put us in front, and something to be proud of.
And I love the fact that you collaborate with others, you partner with others, and that you're always sort of looking forward and being more innovative. So I'm curious, what are some of the things that you do to be able to do that? Because, as you said, not everyone does that, but it certainly is my observation of Whiddon. It's sort of through your culture, through your core.
Yeah, I think we don't know everything, and there are lots of good people, good organisations out there, and I think that we don't pretend to. We know what our strengths are, and we know that there are other opportunities out there. And if we, again, coming back to our purpose and these outcomes and what we want to achieve, if we really want to have that impact, it's so important to be able to open the doors to other partners. So we work with multiple universities. There's a whole range of different universities. There's different organisations. We work with them, and there's a program called Design for Care, which we're working with, I think, 2 or 3 universities to look at how COVID impacts workforce and job design, and most importantly, the well-being of our employees. And now we've taken a lot of learnings from that, and we're looking at interventions to address the top 2 or 3 issues that came out of that research. And then if those interventions are successful, we're going to implement them group-wide. The only motivation for that project is employee well-being and getting better outcomes for employees, which will ultimately flow onto our residents and clients as well. So I think that these partnerships bring sort of new projects, new initiatives, new thinking to life. And you've got to be able to explore them and find them. It can be a bit, take a bit of effort to go and find some of them. Some fall on your doorstep in chaos and whatever else, and others you need to get out there and find them, and that's how it's worked in the past.
I didn't get that. Could you
So, question I've got is, what advice would you give your 25-year-old self about being an adaptable leader?
Okay, so I think that I think the first thing I would tell my 25-year-old self is to get out there. What we were just talking about then. I think I don't know if it's just part of your development or whatever, but me personally, I kind of avoided some of these networking events and things like that. Maybe it was that me at the time, I was studying, young family, I didn't have time for it. But I certainly learned, the more I thrust myself and pushed myself into that space, the more opportunities came, the more opportunities to learn came out of getting into that space as well. So I think that's one thing. And I probably aligned to that is also get out of your comfort zone. I remember probably with public speaking, I hated public speaking. And people aren't always comfortable doing that. But in terms of my role today, I need to do that every day. There is some public speaking event or something I need to go and be a part of and talk to larger teams. And that started with an opportunity to go and talk at something or whatever. Years and years ago, you didn't really want to do it, but you do it, and you learn and you get better at it, and I guess you get more confidence. So I think pushing yourself out of your comfort zone is really important. And I think the other thing would probably be about the chaos, which kind of ties into failure as well. It can be pretty confronting, being in an oppressive environment or when things aren't going your way. But when the dust settles and you look back, there's generally positives that come out of it. There are learnings. You become stronger. You might find a way to do something better. It might bring the team closer together. There's generally positives that come out of that. So don't be too scared, I guess, of the chaos and have a fear of failing. There's always a positive, and as long as you're constructive about that, you'll build, you'll get stronger, you'll get better.
Great answer, Chris. Loved it. So we're coming towards the end, and I was just wondering, anything else you'd like to share with our listeners around being more adaptable as a leader?
I think we've covered things like authenticity. We've covered things like the value of networks. Look, I think the one thing that stands out, and we probably have spoken about it, but I think this bit about we spoke about purpose and following that purpose, and how the North Star, how that is really what helps with your success and getting up in the morning. But I think it's probably about living your values. And I think that value alignment, I think the value alignment with the career you take, with the organizations that you end up staying with, I think value alignment is critical. And I think I see people who tend to succeed, within my team, in prior organizations, they have value alignment. And the ones that don't, succeed is probably not the right word, but the ones that don't stay and aren't happy, they're misaligned with their values. So I think you find you have inner success, inner comfort, you have inner satisfaction where your values align, and that gives you the best outcome. And I think that's the example I use here in terms of what we do at Whiddon. What I usually say to people is when you're sort of feeling a bit flat, or you're feeling overwhelmed, or you're buried in spreadsheets or documents or whatever it may be, go and walk over to the home across the road here, or you might be due for a site visit. And when I do that, and when I go and sit down and might have some lunch with the residents, I might go out to the smokers. I don't smoke, but I'll go to the smokers area where some of the team are and have a chat with them. It brings everything back to life again, and it really connects with me, and it refreshes me. It's like someone just recharged the batteries and plugged them in, and I can go back in and dive into the crap I was doing and get stuck into it again with sort of being a little more revitalized. So I think living your values provides that and helps you to re-energize in that way, where if I didn't care about these outcomes, what would I be looking for to kind of help recharge myself with? So, I use this example of care and aged care and not-for-profit environment, and that means a lot to me. But that can be, you can take that and overlay that under whatever environment you're in, whether it's banking and finance or in real estate or whatever it may be. And if you can connect with your values, you're going to get longevity, you're going to get fulfillment out of the work that you do.
Totally agree with that. Great answer. Thank you, Chris. Thank you so much for coming along and joining me today. Really, really enjoyed reconnecting and loved your words of wisdom. And I'm sure our listeners are going to love your words of wisdom as well. So thank you. And great to see you. And I'm going to send you a hug because you know what I'm like.
Thank you very much. And thank you for inviting me on, Danette. I really appreciate it.
Pleasure.
So Danette, what a great conversation. That was so fun. I feel like I took a lot of notes. That was such a good one. Were there any sort of, takeaways you had from the conversation with Chris today?
So one of the things in the book is definitely about knowing your purpose and being authentic. And Chris really demonstrates both of those. He's done a lot of work. So Chris started as an accountant, and now he's the CEO of a massive non-profit aged care provider who does amazing work. So I think that knowing your purpose is super important. And he also talked about public speaking, weirdly. So a lot of people go, what's that got to do with adaptability? But if we're going to get everyone on board with the purpose and take them on the journey, we actually have to be a really good communicator as well. And so Chris has spent a lot of time working on that. And that was his one piece of advice that I think all leaders should learn. It doesn't matter if you're uncomfortable with public speaking. It's not about you. It's about bringing people along on the journey. And we need that to help people adapt.
Absolutely. Yeah, I feel like there was so many takeaways for me. I guess another thing the reason that it also kind of feels like it makes you adaptable, purpose with passion, is it comes back to, for me, that sort of Simon Sinek,
yes.
Find your why, and then you can kind of use that as the energy source.
Yep.
I just thought one thing that I really liked about this was that, and there's so many good answers to your question about what does failure mean, what does it look like, and I think this one was a really good example of how failure actually is success in a different kind of way. It allows you to see where mistakes are. So I thought
Yep.
Chris did a great job there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
Yeah, awesome. Well, as always, we have a question.
Yes.
And so this one, I guess, is a pretty blunt question, but we appreciate it, from Sash, which is, what are the benefits of having a purpose attached to your work?
So I think when we don't have purpose, you're sort of looking for external motivators for why you turn up at work. And so Some days it's going to be hard to turn up enthused, excited. Some days you might just go, yeah, I'm going to hit snooze too many times. And really working with someone, particularly if you're in a leadership position where that person doesn't know their purpose and isn't really passionate, that can be really demotivating for those underneath them. The other thing I think is when you know your purpose, it helps you to focus resources on driving that purpose. And so if you've got a purpose that's really about growing and helping others, then it becomes easy to make decisions about what do we stop doing, but also where do we focus our resources. And I think if your purpose is something that others can buy into, if you can communicate that, you can help move change much faster. Because you've got that spark about the difference that you're going to make. And Chris absolutely in the podcast demonstrated that about the passion that he brings to the purpose of Whiddon. So, if you don't know your purpose yet, one of the resources we have on the Danette FM website is actually about exploring what your purpose might be. So I definitely encourage you to download that particular resource, and I'm pretty sure we'll put that in the link with this podcast. Thanks, Jez.
That's all right, and thanks to Sash for writing in. For our next season, of course, you'll be able to write in. We've already done all the questions. Yes. We've gathered them already, but next season we would love more questions in from people. Danette, any final thoughts today on purpose with passion or the conversation with Chris?
I think that as individuals, as leaders, knowing your passion can really help you then, one, if you're looking for work, identify employers that actually work with your passion so you can bring it to the workplace and enjoy your work more. And if you're a leader, getting really clear on that passion and thinking about the impact. And I always think of leadership as, how can I serve? So thinking about who am I serving and what sort of impact do I want to have really helps me literally get up every day and be excited about what I'm doing. And I see that definitely in all of the podcasts we've done so far. The purpose is really clear for every single one of them, and their enthusiasm, excitement, and just love for what they do, it shines through because they know their purpose.
Amazing. Well, I don't think we could have put it any better. Thank you, Danette. What a great podcast. Everybody continue to listen, share, and next week we've got another amazing podcast as well. And until next time, have a magical week.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Jez.